Welcome, everybody, to Therapist Take. We're going to talk about how to navigate and manage chronic illness as a family, so don't go anywhere. Hello, Carrie.
Hello, Josh.
How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'm just excited to be back. I love Fridays because of this.
Yes, well, that's nice.
Yeah. I was kind of skeptical when we first started because I was like, I know you wanted to do it like multiple times a week. I was like, let's just go like once a week.
Yeah, that
Because
seems
it's your
like
thing.
how I
I'm like,
remember it. Yeah.
ended up really loving it.
Oh, I'm glad I could convince you.
A little revisionist history.
Yes, a little bit.
There. Yeah. So, anyways, well, because we have some things we have to get to following the episode, we probably should dive right in.
We
right?
should.
So I want to welcome our guest today, Ceedee Gaddis.
Hello, guys. Hello.
Thanks for being here. And we got a really special episode to talk about with her. But before we begin, I just want to kind of introduce Ceedee. Ceedee, you're a licensed Maryland family therapist, but you have some really interesting specialties aside from. It's a little different from the topic we're talking about today. So you're currently working towards certain levels of TheraPlay. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And what's TheraPlay? Yeah.
absolutely. So TheraPlay is under the umbrella of play therapy. It focuses on attachment and really four dimensions of nurturing engagement, challenge, and structure. And what it does is really hands-on activities in building that bridge of attachment. There's a lot of kiddos and families who may struggle in different areas, and this really, this form of therapy allows for just that activity. And so, sometimes talking about those things is one thing, but being able to do the activities in the moment and being able to address anything that come up is another. And I've seen it just change lives, and
Yeah.
gives me goosebumps talking about
Yeah.
it.
It's a really interesting form of play therapy, and and you have a lot of training, by the way. So, but there is one more I was unaware of that I wanted to ask you about. Is that parent educator Is it security?
Circle of Security, yeah.
Circle of Security. That's right. Yeah. What is that?
So Circle of Security is a parent, and surprisingly, it comes under the umbrella of TheraPlay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
TheraPlay
Yeah.
is based, they kind of go hand in hand. It's based out of attachment. And it really talks about, as parents, there's the circle that children feel secure when they're able to go free and they're able to explore. And then at the end of the day, they are able to come in to open hands. But along that circle, sometimes that attachment is broken. And navigating, how do we reconnect? How do we, when there's a rupture in that attachment, how do we repair, and what that looks like? And there's shark music with our own traumas. How do we manage those? How do we even hear the shark recognize that that's shark music? So when you combine those two, TheraPlay and Circle of Security, that's next level.
Cool. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't even know
Very
that.
cool.
Well, I know you have a lot more trainings, and that we could probably spend another 30 minutes talking about it. But we appreciate you being here today to talk about chronic illness. Yeah. So I'm going to real quickly, before we dive into it, I'm going to cover the episode breakdown for everybody, so everybody knows what we're talking about, and then I'm going to cover some housekeeping things real quickly. So in this episode, we're going to start out. We're probably actually going to start out defining a little bit of what we're talking about when it comes to chronic illness. But we're going to talk about how chronic illness impacts the family and the family dynamics. Then we're going to move into the importance of having effective communication and emotional support. We'll talk some about coping strategies, and then we'll kind of bring it all together and finish up by talking about building a support system that's effective and resilient. And so, but before we dive into all that, just want to remind everybody to do the typical housekeeping things. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you can be notified when more of our videos are posted. Also, take a moment, just like the video, and maybe even share it with somebody to help please those YouTube algorithms so more people can have access to this content. And also, if you're listening to this on the podcast platform, stop what you're doing for a second and just give us a 5-star review, and then head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel as usual. But don't forget to check out the description of the video. Don't forget to check out the show notes on the podcast platform, because we will put links. There's already some links in there right now as we're doing this live, but we will have some. I'll probably go ahead and put some additional links at the when I upload this to the podcast platform. So that's about it, I believe. So let's dive right into it. So to start with, just to kind of set the stage here, what are we talking about when we talk about chronic illness?
Yeah, so chronic illness, so we can go with the clinical term of chronic illness is a, long-standing diagnosis, medical diagnosis that anyone, adult or child, will have that for the unforeseeable future. Whether there is a cure or, that may be manageable or, may be difficult to manage, or there isn't a cure. And so that's kind of a really rough, broad explanation of chronic illness.
Okay.
And examples of, what chronic illness diagnosis can be as big as a cancer diagnosis or as small as asthma. And I say small as asthma, but, asthma can be very broad, depending on the symptomatic features of it.
Sure.
And I'm assuming chronic pain falls in that umbrella.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I know it gets a lot of attention just in and of itself.
Yes, especially in the mental health treatment world. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that when I say chronic illness, it's a very loose term,
Right.
and chronic pain falls into that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's still even a broad, can catch a lot, right?
Oh yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
So we're casting a wide net here.
Yes, we
Yes.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think it's important though to say that it's wide,
Right.
right? Because I think that I think in general, especially where we live in the middle America, that pull your bootstraps up and just deal with it kind of thing. But it's fair to say dealing with asthma, dealing with arthritis,
Oh yeah.
right? These are all things that they weigh on you, right? Especially the chronicity of something adds an extra element of weight, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It especially here in Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains.
Yes, true.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, tell me, what was your inspiration for addressing this particular issue?
Yes, absolutely. So chronic illness is a passion of mine, but it's also a personal journey of mine as well. I've gone back and forth for a while of self-disclosure, of course,
Sure.
but because it is my journey, I can't help but not share. I've struggled with chronic illness since I was young. I'm a cancer survivor.
Oh, wow.
I was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia when I was really young, around about 3 or 4 years old. And so I've been in remission and cancer-free for over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And so as a child going through, toddler years and adolescent years with, spinal taps
Oh,
and
boy.
hospital stays and pictures with no hair, eyebrows, and all those things, you know, and with my older sister. And so I have vague memories of hospital stays and cancer camps that I went to
Wow.
and things like that. So Camp Live a Dream. And I still have my pillowcase
Oh,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
handprints.
the kiddos.
And the sad part is that half of those handprints, a lot of the kids aren't there.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
but fast forward to adulthood, being cancer free, which I'm very grateful for, because not a lot of people get that
Sure.
Yes.
privilege
Yes.
to experience that. I'm also diagnosed in my adulthood, diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh.
So I'm a survivor all around.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are in many ways.
joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so throughout this journey, I've kind of had to figure out how to navigate this journey of chronic illness and
Right.
redefining what healthy is
Yeah.
for me, and having a family too.
Yes.
You know, all the different roles and navigating those roles with a chronic illness
Yeah.
is complicated.
Yeah.
And being able to explain those things when you're not able to do these things, and when you're not able to perform, and when you're not the person that you used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that kind of filtered into, you know,
Your work,
yeah.
Huh.
your treatment focus.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
I'm so
Thank
glad
you
you
for
shared that,
sharing.
yeah.
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 So that's kind of where you wanted to really kind of start your, as a marriage family therapist, someone that works with kids and families and subgroups within the family, et cetera.
Yeah.
You're always thinking in systems, right? And
Yeah.
so, when you think about how does chronic illness affect the family dynamics? You mentioned your sister when you were kind of revealing about some of your journey. And so you've already kind of alluded to it's not just the patient, right,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
impacted
Oh,
by
yeah,
chronic illness.
Yeah. I remember in grad school when they were talking about all the systems theory, and how, when one person holds a rope, everyone feels the shake of the rope. And that's how chronic illness is. Everyone feels the shake of the rope. In the very beginning, chronic illness was kind of an isolative thought that only the individual that was diagnosed felt the effects of it. And of course, absolutely they do, because they're the one in the muck and mire of all of this.
Sure.
But then you have family members and siblings who are watching this and seeing this, and they're not able to do anything about it. And so you have this, and this is out of your control, and you're figuring out, what do I do? And so there's one thing that I went through that I don't think a lot of people talk about, and that's grief. And that's a very real thing when going through chronic illness. When you think of the word grief, you think about someone passing
Sure,
away.
sure.
And in chronic illness, that absolutely happens. But there's a different form of grief.
Yeah.
Disenfranchised grief.
Disenfranchised, is that what you said?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
What
that
Can you
word.
just kind of
Yes, absolutely.
describe what that means?
Absolutely. So disenfranchised grief is, and I'm hoping that I'm saying it correctly, giving the correct definition of it. But when you have plans of things, when you have an idea and plans of things, and they change and shift, when life changes, when the future shifts,
Yeah.
and things end in ways that you did not expect. That's grief.
Grief.
That's loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with the chronic illness, that happens. When I remember with my diagnosis, with the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, there isn't a cure. But I'm grateful because I still have all of my movements, but it's an invisible diagnosis.
Yes, right.
People don't really see what goes on underneath.
Right.
but it's also, there's a lot of unknown. And so
Right.
when you think of in the family unit, you have the patient who's going through all of these different things, and there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know initial diagnosis.
Right, right.
No one knows what's going to happen. How do we address this?
Yeah.
What do we do? You know, what is this going to look like? What is school going to look like? So all
Right.
these different all these different questions with no answers to. And the idea of I'm not the same person anymore.
Yes.
I can't get up and walk. I can't get up and do this. I can't do this anymore. I can't do that. And so the whole list of I can'ts.
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
And how do you address that? Do you address that?
Do you, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how young you are too. How aware are you of that? Like to give verbiage to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so these feelings, and so then here comes the feelings that come up, right? And do you talk to people about these feelings? Because they're scary.
Yeah.
You know, because you have family members who are already dealing with a portion of this, right?
Yes, sure.
So then there's the other feeling of guilt.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And that's a dynamic, right? So everyone's feeling grief, not in the same ways, but
Right.
then there's
Yeah.
differences, especially for the identified patient of grief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's grief for the patient, but then there's also grief for family too.
Sure.
Right.
You know?
Sure.
So maybe is it possible that some of the reason why it might be difficult to disclose is because maybe for a couple different reasons, like one being protecting the family from their own grief, but also I would imagine that you don't want people to see it differently, you know, and I don't know. I mean, you could speak to this. You know how much of that is reasonable, you know, and how much of it is not helpful, you know, because it is with any chronic illness, I would imagine that it's you know it continues to certain aspects of your existence perish. I would imagine, you know, whether it's in MS like movements or. My condition's narcolepsy. It's nowhere near what you deal with, but it does, as I age, does get worse, for sure, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. There, you know, I always think of if I voice it, if I say it out loud, then it becomes true, right?
Right.
So if I don't say it, then it's
Oh,
not
gosh,
true.
I'm
Right.
the worst at that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So if I keep it in,
Sure.
then it's not true.
not real.
It's
Yeah.
not real. And so I'm gonna hold on to it.
Yeah.
And so then it's not real. But we know that it is because
Yeah.
we feel it every day. And then we also, you know, our family sees it too. And they can't help us
Yeah.
without knowing. And so I think part of that is our own self too. And a little bit of that is also for other people that we still want to hold on to this identity.
Yeah.
But I think that once we gain, and you know, we'll kind of move on into,
Right.
you know, gaining, how do we gain the resiliency?
Right.
But once we're able to separate ourselves and realize our identity hasn't changed, you know, despite of the diagnosis,
Yeah.
then we can recognize that asking for help doesn't shift that.
Right. Right. Right.
But in the midst of it, especially in the midst of the hurricane of
The hurricane,
everything,
yeah.
you can't see the difference between
Sure.
yourself and the hurricane.
Right.
Right?
No. No.
It's all clouds.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all a mess.
It's all
Yeah.
of us.
And this
Yeah.
this conversation kind of bleeds into the second point that we're talking about, which is like effective communication, emotional support, but you know when we're talking about families and and the decision to disclose and tell them, you know, like I think if we're being completely honest, like sometimes that might not be helpful based upon who your family members are, you know, who the people are you're telling, and
Yeah.
you knowing how their anxiety works, or because although, as I was saying, you know, like that it is important to speak it in to acknowledge the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
You know how people's anxiety can kind of run, or their fears, and then all of a sudden they have the thing that you didn't want to happen is happening, which is they're seeing you differently.
Yeah. So I think that that's when you don't take ownership of that. There are times when family members will see you in a different light, and that's outside of your control, and you can't
Right.
help that. And so that's when we talk about the circle of your control and the things that you can control. You can control your thoughts. You can control the things that you say, the things you do, and everything like that. How people see and view you, that's outside of your control. The only thing that you can do is use your voice and let people know. And that's the extent of it. And once you've done that,
You put it in the universe and have to let
Yeah.
go.
yeah, you have to let go. Now, it sounds, I'm saying it as if it's
Easy
super
peasy.
easy.
Yeah.
Of course it's not.
And
Yeah.
it's something that I'm still working on and still
Right.
doing as
Yeah.
we speak.
Sure.
I would also think that in an effort to not take ownership of it based upon who you're interacting with, and everybody has different types of family members and friends, that you might have to have conversations about what you need from, like, I don't need this, but instead this. Now, of course, the ball's in their court at that point.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes. And so in having that conversation also means having a conversation with finding out the things that you need and being comfortable enough to be explicit with those needs.
Yeah.
When you're saying, because sometimes with chronic illness, you have extreme fatigue. And it's just saying I'm really tired
Yes.
is an understatement.
Right. It's not typical
It's
people
not,
tired.
It's not the same
Yeah.
tired, because when we say we're tired, oh, well, you didn't get enough sleep.
Right.
Let's
You
go
watch
take a nap.
Netflix too long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just go take a nap?
Right.
But that's not the type of tired
Right.
Right.
that you're fatigued.
Yeah.
You need to lay down.
You need to
or
rest.
else your body is going to force you
Yeah.
to lay down. And so being able to communicate
Yeah.
that I cannot move.
Yeah.
And saying that, I mean, just being able to be explicit, but that's a hard
Yeah.
space.
Because it builds on what you mentioned in the first one, which is the grief of it, right? Part of
Yes.
grief is that battle of acceptance of this is really happening and what this actually means for a family, what this actually means for our family, the dynamics and how we
Yeah.
operate. And so, the points that we've highlighted today do have a progressive element to them, right? Because it's hard to effectively communicate if you're still battling some of that denial and minimization, bargaining stuff that's part of grief. Like, well, maybe I really don't have it. Maybe the doctors were wrong, or maybe I have a mild case, or, and again, we can't help that process. Grief is unfortunately, can't go over it, can't go under it, must go through it experience
Yeah.
when it comes to loss and challenge. And so understanding that first, the grief and what that means for the whole unit, right, being affected by the chronic illness. And then, okay, now I've got to have some at least acceptance of that this is happening, what's happening, understanding it, to then be able to communicate
Yeah.
to yourself and with other people, and then to have your people help you with that,
Absolutely.
right? Then
Yeah.
so many things moving all at one time.
And if you're somebody listening to this that has a family member with chronic illness, I think it's important for them to believe you. To believe the person that is saying, like, when you're saying, like, no, I can't just take a nap. Like, and I think probably one of the worst things to do in that moment is to discredit them.
Yes.
Undergoing the diagnosis for narcolepsy when I was a teenager, I have trauma from a teacher that never believed me, even after I was diagnosed, because he just didn't believe it was real. And so I think that with something like MS and other type, like chronic pain would be one of those too.
Yeah.
Like, all you have is the people that you love. You have their word, and then if you have the benefit of being around them a lot, you'll get to experience
Witness.
what
Yeah.
it's like, and that definitely helps. But you don't even need that. You just need to believe the people that are telling you
Yeah.
that this is real.
Right. This is what's going on.
Absolutely. One interesting communicating tool is the spoons theory.
Yes, tell us about this.
So I brought these little spoons as a kind of a visual.
I love them. They're darling.
And talking about the spoons theory. So what the spoons theory is, so with chronic illness, so someone who doesn't have chronic illness is given, so in here is 24 spoons.
Okay.
So someone without chronic illness is given a full 24 spoons, and they can use these spoons for whatever reason.
For all the tasks of daily life.
All the waking up, going to bed, brushing teeth, going to work, working, doing all the things. And they can use these interchangeably. But someone who has chronic illness is given at least, so I'm going to try to take out half of these. Is given about half of these spoons to do a daily task. And there are no, like once they use this, they're gone. And so when they wake up, once you brush your teeth, the
Are you
spoon's
one?
gone.
Spoons gone.
Yeah. You put your shoes on,
Wow. Yeah.
the spoon's gone. Doing hair, spoon's gone.
I don't have to worry about that one, but we'll go with it. Yes.
Getting kids ready.
Oh, 1,000 spoons.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
Spoon's
Do
gone.
their hair.
And so we've used this already.
All you got left the whole day. You haven't
So-
even eaten.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything really for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not only are you starting out with half the amount,
Yeah.
you go through faster.
Yeah.
Is what, right?
Well, you just use them up.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. And we haven't even gotten to work yet.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
still the morning time. And we
Yeah.
have 4 spoons. What happens when you wake up
Mhm.
and you are experiencing pain
Mhm.
or you're having a flare up? And so that day you're waking up with only 3 spoons.
Mhm. Wow.
How do you communicate that?
Hold up the spoon.
Yeah. Like, I only have 3 spoons today.
Yeah.
And this is where the conversation comes in, not only with yourself, but with your partner or your support team on, I'm needing help today.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And this is what I may need it to look like
Mhm.
because
I started with 3.
I only have 3.
Yeah.
And this is a hard spot to be in too.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
And we also have to look at caregivers too.
yes.
Yeah.
Because they're also,
Yeah, they have spoons too.
they have spoons and they have lots of things to use them on if they're helpful.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So, like, let's talk about how do we cope with this. The one thing I've talked to and had many clients about, and I'm sure you have too, is that, how many adults have we worked with that have sat across from us and they had the sibling that was Downs or was just sick, and they got more attention and because the parents had to, and I've talked to about that. I was like, well, they couldn't do anything else. They had to.
Yeah.
They had to do
care.
what they had to do because of the
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah, sure.
and it impacts them,
Yeah.
So 2 things. One is what are some effective tools for helping family members manage this, but also too, like I've just noticed, like and this might just be your personality, but you're always just smiling. And you're so happy all the time. And I'm not saying you don't ever get to come in. You can come in my office and be mad if you want. If you
Anytime.
need to vent, don't feel like you got to come in happy all the time. But it seems like that whether it's your personality or you're intentional about it, that you're deciding how you want to move through life, and what attitude you want to have.
Yeah, so as far as coping, one thing that I identified was a triangle of health, like being able to identify my healthy. Now, of course, we all know what healthy is, right? But the triangle health is emotional, physical, and social. And how can I keep this? What am I in control of in keeping this balanced? And if I can list different things underneath emotional, mental, and physical and social. If I can list things in all of these areas that I can do to keep this balanced, that's inside of my control. Like, I can control what I eat. I can control how even if it's arm curls at my desk, if like my legs are feeling like rubber and I can move my arms, then that's fine. That's me moving. Me loving colorful foods. If I can make colorful foods, then that's me, putting healthy things in my body. In as far as my feelings and taking care of my emotional state, I encourage everyone, if they possibly can, if they don't have a therapist, to seek one out, because going through this journey by yourself, not just as a patient, but family members as well,
Sure.
is difficult. And so if you have a mental health provider to go through this journey with you, I absolutely recommend it.
Yeah.
Because being able to go through this and heal with someone alongside you is transformative.
Yeah.
Because it's a long journey. And having a social life
Yes. Yeah.
outside of doctor's appointments is absolutely important,
Right.
especially with siblings
Yeah.
and adults too,
Yes.
caregivers too.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Calling in respite when they can, and not feeling guilty about it,
Yeah.
because it's okay. It's okay
Right.
to call in for help when it's because it's self-care.
That's right.
Yeah.
Taking care of self so that you can fill the water can of others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to tell just a small little story that when I was in college, and it really wasn't until grad school that I started to really release the hold that narcolepsy had on me. I really filtered everything through it. Certain things I wouldn't do, because I'd always think about, can I do this? Like, how is this going to impact me? And so, when I was in college, though, and this is kind of, I feel like, a starting point for me in doing that. Doing my undergraduate, there was a class I was taking, and loved the class, loved the professor, but it was a class where there's 5 projects, and they were all due at basically the same time, and that was your grade. And so, I had never asked for extra time, even though through the ADA, Americans Disability Act, I was afforded that, and I was getting nervous about getting certain projects done on time. I never, not once in my life, have I pulled an all-nighter, because I physically can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I went and visited with this professor, just saying, hey, I think I might need some extra time on these projects, and of course he knows, and also based bound by law. He said, Josh, he goes, I'll give you extra time if you need it, of course. He goes, but he's just something I want you to think about. He goes, I'm a diabetic. He's like, when I go to a buffet with my friends, I watch them just eat whatever they want and how much they want. And he said, this world isn't built around diabetics, And he said, so I had to decide for myself, how I was going to manage my life, given that it's not a diabetic world, And that was a very impactful story. I got my projects done on time, and I just kind of operated from the mindset that this world it's not built for narcoleptics, and my day is much shorter than most people's. I have to get things done quicker and faster and be more efficient. And it really, I had to, and this is what I'm getting at in terms of coping, is come to terms with the condition, so that I could decide how I was going to start moving forward in my own life. But that also helped me do some of the things you're talking about, communicating to others, you know, I'm convinced it's real for me. So if you're not convinced it's real for me, we got a problem.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
because this is just how it's going to have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then from there, it's really me steering that ship. It's not relying on others to steer it for me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And how does that work? I mean, to me, it sounds like that was a moment where you started choosing, right,
Yeah.
for yourself what was better. And I would think as an adult, that's obviously much easier than if you're a child dealing with chronic illness. But the acknowledgement that you're going to have to accept this and do what needs to be done, and that can actually activate people to be your support network,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
if someone
Yeah.
says, hey, you know, I need this, or someone says to you, hey, I need this because of this, everyone can kind of start to, you know,
Yeah.
fall in line, right? They get their assignments. I would think that would build resiliency and be healthy coping.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Self-advocacy. You know,
You're right.
absolutely, absolutely self-advocacy. Being able to see that the things that I can do and I can control, and taking that initiative. And it takes a lot to recognize that, okay, this is, I can do this. That there's a lot of people have said this, that as far as MS goes, that I have MS, but MS doesn't have me. That,
Oh, I like that.
that
Yeah.
I may have this diagnosis, but the diagnosis doesn't have me. And so, and that in and of itself separates
Yeah.
you from, it starts to separate you from the diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it looks like this, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And with any diagnosis, and even mental health diagnosis
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
Sure.
We look
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
this,
In the
right?
grips. Yeah.
And so being able to separate that the diagnosis is here
Yeah.
and we're here, and that we're not identified
Yeah.
by the diagnosis, that we're still ourselves. And so I remind myself that I'm still Ceedee,
Yeah.
and I'm still
love
me,
it.
and all the things that, the goofy,
Yeah.
colorful rainbows
Yes.
and glitter and all the things
Yeah.
that make me. And so, and I have a choice that I can wake up and smile and move about. But if I am feeling down, I have a choice that I can sit down and rest when I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and those are my choices.
Yeah.
Right. It's great.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I'm loving this conversation. I think if you're willing to, maybe sometime in the coming days, maybe we can meet and talk about how we can kind of see where we can go from here. Maybe have you back on so we can continue the
Yeah.
conversation. I have so many more questions and so many things that
I think it would be, we
that
could
we-
pick it into so much
Yeah.
more
Oh,
helpful
yeah.
information.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I honestly didn't anticipate it was going to be this fun talking about it. To be honest with
Well,
you,
it's
so
a,
it's such an
it's a
interesting.
sad topic, but
Yeah.
I think that sitting here with her, also, you get to experience not just your expertise, but your lived expertise, right? Which
Right.
is really energizing.
Yeah,
right? And,
yeah.
and engaging.
It's a needed conversation,
It
though,
is,
like
it
much
is.
needed conversation.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
so everybody's touched by this somewhere
Yes.
in their life.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing that I want everyone to realize is the hope that's in it, and that, even having chronic illness, that there is hope, and the choice to find the hope and healing in this journey is there, especially through resilience and connectedness.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's there.
Right.
So,
That's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing
Thanks,
that,
Ceedee.
and for real, let's plan a time to get you back on,
Part
and we
two.
can. Yeah,
absolutely.
and we'll talk more about it. And also, I'm really digging the earrings too. Like,
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
know. The whole
Um,
vibe. It's a vibe.
it's
The
a very,
whole,
I'm having a lot of squirrel moments as we're talking with you. 'Cause I've
Stayed
been
on
wanting
track.
to-
I know.
I was wanting to
know.
mention the earrings for so long, and I waited to the very end.
Okay,
So I'm very proud of
good.
myself. But thank you, CD, for being here and bringing this to our attention. And as I said, I think it's a much needed conversation, and we'll try to continue it.
Absolutely.
in the
Thank you guys
future.
both so much for having me.
Yeah. And we appreciate everybody who tunes into this and finds benefit in the content that we're producing. And we just hope that this conversation was also helpful. Feel free in the comments or anywhere that on whatever platform you're on, wherever it'll allow you to comment on your impression of of this show or any questions that you have, certain directions we can go with it if we have CD back on, and that way we can address the concerns of everybody else. So thanks for being here.